Hello everybody, this is Dale again, and welcome to Everything That's Wrong with Moderates Part 3. So moderates, y'all get the most in here because there's a lot of classifications of moderates, especially because politics changes all the time. As I start all these videos off, I'm not here to beat up on anybody, but politics is big, it's messy, and there's a lot of people involved, and it changes every 2 years. So moderates is a term that can be applied to anybody. And this right here is going to pretty much be for the moderate conservatives, the never-Trumper types. And we're going to talk a little bit about how the never-Trumper types, not only did they create this problem in the Republican Party, but they're the ones that could fix it. And for this, we're going to use my boy, Joy Scarborough. And honestly, if you're on the right and you mainly watch conservative media and you're looking to try to expand your horizon, as much as I'm about to talk trash about Joe Scarborough right here, Morning Joe's probably one of the best shows for you to watch to actually get like a conservative take. Because most of the people on that panel are conservatives. You know, that they have like ex-RNC chairs on there. And Joe Scarborough, the show, the guy the show's named after, is one of the Republicans that impeached Bill Clinton. So, you're not going to see a whole lot of extra love for liberals on there, but you are going to see fairness towards liberals and not just a blind hatred towards them, because there's also liberals on the show as well, and he does have liberal friends. But that's a great show. Anyway, Joe Scarborough, he idolizes Reagan. In fact, I watch that show not every day, but I watch that show several times a week. Again, I watch all media to make sure that media can't lie to me about what other media is saying or about what a faction believes. I need to hear that from them. I need to see that from that media. So he always talks about Reagan all the time. Talks about Reagan. Now, there's one problem I have with Reagan, and this is the problem with the Joe Scarborough, the old George Bush Republicans and the never-Trumpers, and now they're kind of considered moderates because they have no love for the Republican Party, but they have no love for the Democratic Party either, so they're basically classified as moderates. That's why I'm putting them in a Moderates 3 video. Anyway, constantly talks about Reagan. Reagan has a quote that should disqualify Reagan from even being in the discussion of one of the greatest presidents of all time. He said that the government is not the solution to the problem, the government is the problem. Now, will somebody please explain to me why you would ever vote for the head of the government that doesn't believe that the government can solve problems? Please, explain it to me. Explain to me how you can spend the last 30, 40 years idolizing a guy who talked about the government only being a problem, that the government can't solve problems. And that's just pretty much ignoring, the last thousands of years where the government has literally created most of the advancements in mankind. I mean, the government has at least had a hand in it. The government has to at least allow it to happen, because for a long time they didn't. So why would you idolize somebody who saw the government as not being a solution? And that's why we have the radicalism on the right that we see, is because for a long time, Republicans, who are now moderates, Republicans believed that the government can't solve problems. And look, we all have this inclination towards self-fulfilling prophecies. It's like hiring somebody from Greenpeace to run your fracking operation, and then wondering why we have such a corruption problem and that the government's not working the way it should. You're literally hiring people from Greenpeace to run our fracking operation. That has created so many of the problems, because as soon as you start putting in the idea in people's minds that they shouldn't take pride in the government, that they shouldn't, do everything in their power to minimize the corruption in the government, because as I've said in other videos, everybody understands that we're going to have a government. This group of people understands that we're always going to have the government. Now that, and I understand the mentality, because a lot of these people are the ones who believed in the ideology of, we just want the government small enough to where we can drown it in a bathtub. I don't remember who said that. I think it was Robert Norquist or somebody like that ended up saying that. We want the government so small we can drown it in a bathtub. Well, whenever you start spreading that amongst people, then people start electing politicians that talk about deconstructing the administrative state. And so that's what we have. And that's what Trump was trying to do. So I think, again, I'm not here to just beat up on Joe Scarborough. Again, I watch the show, and I really do recommend anybody who watches Fox News every day to watch Joe Scarborough. It's going to be a great transition for you. He's not going to show any extra love towards Democrats. I can promise you that. So, much love. I'm not here to beat up on anybody, but moderate Republicans, the never Trumpers, they have got to fix that amongst the Republican Party. They have to start spreading the message that the government, if you put the right people in there, if you put the right Republicans in there, with the way the Democrats are now, with basically the Republicans being like so hard on them for so long that they've basically done away with a lot of the corruption. I mean, if there was a bill that the House could pass now, anti-corruption, like all the Democrats need is a couple Republicans that want to fix corruption, a dozen. If the Democrats could get a dozen Republicans that actually want to fix corruption, we could actually fix corruption because there's enough Democrats out there that would want to do the same thing. Now, there are some who might try to block it, depending on the donors and all this and that, but we just need some Republicans to do it. And here's how people like Joe Scarborough and the Never Trumpers could actually fix it. They could do it by starting their very own highly conservative third party. That's how you stop it. That's how you fix it. I mean, if the fascists want to have the Republican Party, you can just create a third party. And then this problem that we're seeing in the House, that wouldn't be a problem. It wouldn't. And honestly, we're at a time in this country where a third party could actually take off. A third party right now, if they just were very, very, very strategic with their resources, they would be able to take a couple dozen House seats. They could take a couple dozen House seats. I mean, honestly, if they did that, y'all would be able to take the gavel from Democrats for a really long time. Y'all would have a huge control over who's going to actually get that gavel in the House. And in the Senate, they could take over a few of them in the Senate and decide who they wanted to caucus for, depending on how radical the Republicans are at the time. So y'all could kill them. Now, that's not to say that in other races, overall, the Republicans would probably lose power overall. Let's be honest. If there's another conservative party that runs in general elections, the Republicans are going to lose quite a few seats. But that third party is going to take a lot of swing seats. They're going to take a lot of swing seats. And, excuse me, still a little sick, like everybody else has been. They're going to take a lot of swing seats. And honestly, people like Joe Scarborough and all these never Trumpers and the people and the Lincoln Project, they were able to pull a lot of money from a lot of rich people who wanted to try to stop the fascism. Well, now's your perfect opportunity to actually stop it. And that would end it right then. If there was actually a third party that said, and honestly, if they were going to do it, you got to start in a state. Start in Florida or start in Texas and try to create that third party in Florida or Texas, or maybe Florida and Texas at the same time. And right then, you have the Republican Party by the nuts. You almost control them because you'll be able to take plenty of seats in those state legislators that you will be able to actually take back the Republican Party and limit the fascist power. You could do that tomorrow. They have the resources, they have the connections, and most importantly, they have the political experience to be able to make something like that happen. But they're not doing it. They're just trying to ride this wave, because they don't have any love for Democrats and because they, just like the problem with conservatives, they don't have any love for Democrats. And it's kind of weird because, Democrats right now are at least trying to do stuff. Even the most right-wing people, if they sit down and they're honest, they will talk about how badly we needed the bills that have been passed in the last 2 years. A lot of these bills are years overdue. Badly needed them. Even if you're the most fiscally responsible conservative, most of them, if they're being honest and they understand anything about economics and infrastructure and, basically civilization building, they would understand that these bills they passed were desperately needed. Desperately needed. So anyway, again, I'm not here to pick on my never Trumpers or my moderate conservatives. I'm not here to pick up on you, but this is something that y'all have to work on. You have to break this idea amongst the right and amongst yourselves that the government can't be a solution to the problem, because you're just going to attract grifters. You're just going to attract people that want to deconstruct the administrative state. Y'all have a good night.